Hello and welcome to Euphoria. Today we'll take another look at the new town hall building that I'm designing for my LEGO city. It's going to be quite a large building that has an important place in the centre of the city. Now I want to progress the design of this MOC by looking at the structural design. This video is part of a series explaining how I develop the concept, design and build for a LEGO creation of my own design, a MOC or my own creation. In previous videos I looked at the inspiration for starting this MOC, the development of the initial concept, a look at various options and the development of an outline design. There are links to those videos in the description below. In this video, which is part 4 of the series, we'll take the outline design, which we developed in the previous episode, and take it further into the design phase. I'll be covering the rest of the design and build of this MOC in later episodes in this series, so look out for those coming up. Before we start, let's just summarise what the outline design looks like so far. This is going to be quite a large town hall building that does justice to its important place on the main square or plaza in my LEGO city. This building will be in a traditional style, which means the building will look like it's built from materials like brick and stone, and I want it to be a classically proportioned building, as often seen in European cities, which means it will be symmetrical with an entrance in the centre. It's going to be a full building, that's to say not just a facade or a doll's house style building, and it will therefore have all its walls and be viewable from the front, the back and the sides. It will have an undercroft or lower ground floor, and with the main ground floor of the building and a first floor, that means the building will be kind of 2.5 stories high, as the ground floor will be raised up slightly. There will be some steps at the front to reach the main entrance, and I would also like to have a portico over the entrance. On top of the building will be a clock and possibly a carillon. Inside it will have a logical layout and workable internal spaces that could be used for things like administration offices and public or ceremonial rooms. This is going to be designed like a modular building, so it will be split into different levels so that the different floors can be removed for access to the inside of the building. Last time we looked at various layout options and decided that this is going to be a 64 stud wide straight modular building, meeting the modular building standards and conventions, with the normal modular connection points at the sides of the building. And it will be the correct scale to fit in with the other modular buildings from the LEGO Creator Expert Modular line and the ones I've made for my LEGO city. So now we're going to take the outline design developed in the previous episode and work on it a bit more. Although we previously looked at various options and worked out an outline design, this is the first proper part of the design phase itself. There's a lot going on in this stage of the design, and it doesn't always proceed in a straight line, but in this video I want to explore some of the aspects relating to the structure of the MOC. Based on the outline design, we'll develop the basic shape of the MOC, work out the size of the MOC, that is its overall dimensions, work out whether the build is made out of separate sections that can be constructed separately, and for a modular MOC this will at least be the separate floors of the building, and these should let me develop the rough floor plans for the different stories or levels of the building. We'll also need to consider how the design provides support for the floors and the roof, whether it has enough strength, and how it will conform to the modular building standards. All of those factors go into producing the structural design. I've already developed some design ideas through the development of the concept for this MOC, as I explained previously, but now I'll be developing this design in a combination of computer-aided design on the computer, and I'll do some prototyping using real bricks alongside the design phases. Doing some prototyping allows me to check how some of the elements fit together physically, to test the strength of some assemblies, and to see how things actually look. So now let's make a start on the structural design for this MOC. First, we're going to look at the size and shape of the building. That should give me a footprint of the building and the position of the main features. We saw in the outline design that I want this MOC to be a straight modular building. We looked at different sizes and how to fit it into the two base plates that are available for the building, and I decided on a building that's the full 64 studs wide. We want the building to be symmetrical, with the entrance in the middle. That constrains the layout somewhat, but there are still lots of options about how the facade is laid out and the style of the building. I made a start with laying out this MOC as a 64 stud wide straight modular building in Studio, like this. Don't worry about the colours or details just for now. Normally a modular building is 16 studs deep, but it can be deeper, it can extend further back on the base plate, or it can extend a bit forward. It doesn't have to be a straight facade, and there's room to provide some interesting variation. By convention, there's a pavement or sidewalk along the front of a modular building, which is between 4 and 8 studs deep. In this case, we want to keep the building in line with the convention, but we also want to have steps and a portico at the front entrance. So I'll look at that a bit more in a minute. So the basic footprint of the building on the two base plates will look something like this. Now, the main thing that most people recognise when thinking about a building is the facade or front face of the building. The facade obviously consists of the walls and windows and entrance, along with other structural and decorative elements which give the building its presence on the street. That's often where I start with a design, although I've found that the facade is the easy part, and there's a lot more to the design than just the front of the building. But anyway, we'll start exploring the possibilities for the layout of the facade for this MOC. In real life, you tend to have a structure where the masonry is aligned vertically, and so are the windows, so that you don't have large areas of masonry with nothing to support them. And over the windows you usually have a lintel to support the wall above, but for larger windows you tend to need arches. There are quite a few options for using arch pieces over small windows, such as these low 1x6 arches for 4 stud wide windows, or these top light window pieces that fit under some types of arch piece. For larger windows, of course, you need a larger arch, but when you use larger arch pieces, it can be difficult to find curved or window Lego elements that fit underneath them properly. The way to get round this is just to use the normal square windows and inset them behind the arches. The arches and the insets also then add some interest and depth to the facade of the building. The facade of a building often has other ornamentation, columns, different colours of masonry, etc., but I'll come on to that later. Here I've been playing with different sizes of windows with an arched top. But before we can settle on the layout of the facade, we really need to think about the positioning of the main entrance and consider how high the walls need to be. So, looking at the main entrance, because this is a large building, it would be good to have an impressive main entrance with double doors. And as we said in the outline design, we'd like to have a portico of some sort over the front entrance. That extends the footprint of the building, but the depth of the portico could be 6 or 8 studs to keep within the normal base plate. Or I could cheat and extend forward beyond the base plate, which would make it more impressive and allow us to have some steps at the front as well, but would maybe need the addition of another little base plate or to extend onto an adjacent base plate at the front. Now we're going to look at the height of the walls. First we'll look at the lower ground floor or semi-basement. In the outline design we worked out that the town hall will have a lower ground floor with the main floor level and the entrance being raised by 3 or 4 bricks. That isn't high enough to fit in a complete basement, and obviously I can't go down below the base plate unless I raise the ground level up by using something like a Mills system. So we'll have to imagine that the lower ground level extends further down than it really does. This level will support the exterior walls of the building, but it must also provide some support for the floor plate of the ground floor and any internal walls that are built on top. So I will need to add some more support into this level when I've got a bit further with the design. Now, looking at the main ground floor level of the building, I normally make these between 8 and 10 bricks high. That gives a nice ceiling height for minifigures, gives plenty of room for the doors and windows in the walls, but doesn't make it too difficult to provide stairs to reach the next story. Already with this design we have a height of 10 bricks, although that's easily adjusted depending on how I lay out the windows. Then the first floor would be a similar height or slightly less, so usually about 8 bricks high. And at the top of each level will be a separation layer using tiles. I now have an established way of doing this, which is similar to the Lego modular buildings, and it's worked reliably in my other MOCs. I rather like having the large arched windows, And so here I'm working out a tiling separation layer that fits with these windows and the arches. We'll continue to work on the window and facade layout as we develop the design. And if I keep those nice large arched windows, I can actually include a second floor for the main part of the building, which would make it look more impressive, a bit like this example, which is in Lüneburg in Germany. That's obviously a departure from the outline design, but I think it's worth trying it out. I remember that I've seen some town halls have a main structure with smaller wings at the sides, which are not as high as the central or main part of the building. I quite like that idea, and I want to have a look at that for this mock to give the building a more interesting shape. Adding wings to the building breaks up the facade. It might allow for the creation of a smaller version of the town hall without the wings, and it means that they could be built as separate sections. I've built mocks before that are 48 studs wide, but I've never built one that's 64 studs wide. And I know you can get problems with larger mocks if they're all built as one piece. So what I'm going to do is design this mock as a main central section with a wing at each side to make the building up to the full width of 64 studs. I'll make the wings a bit smaller than the main building, which will also add a bit more interest to the shape of the building. So I'll need to work that into the facade and work out how to space out the windows. If we make each wing 9 or 10 studs wide, then it's possible to fit a smaller window into each wing, and there's still room to play around with the layout of the main part of the building. Now we do need a staircase to reach the first floor. Although stairs take up quite a lot of room, I don't really want an elevator in this building as it's quite a traditional building. On the ground floor, it would be good to have a nice central hallway immediately behind the main entrance, and this can give access to the rooms either side of the building. I tried lots of ways of building a staircase, including one going round the entrance hall, but that seemed very messy and needs a lot of extra walls and support. I could even put the staircase kind of at the end of one of the sections of the building, but after a lot of trial and error, eventually I decided to put a stairwell at the back of the building. That forms a kind of rear extension and keeps the stairs out of the way. This gives a kind of cross or plus shape to the overall footprint of the building, with the stairwell at the back and the portico at the front. We also need a way to get down to the lower ground floor, and the stairs for that can also go in the stairwell. We also really need a rear entrance to the building, and having a stairwell at the back makes it easier to do that. Just having external stairs looked a bit odd, but adding access with a rear entrance via the stairwell looks much better. So, having tried those different ideas out in the model and settled on the design with a rear stairwell and rear entrance, I can add those to the structural design. Then of course we need to consider the roof. We really need to work out the structure for the roof. It's not just a case of plonking a roof on top of the building. We need to consider the roof early, as the walls and the rest of the building need to support it. It's not too bad to design a roof with a fairly rectangular shape, although for this building we now have to deal with the extension at the back for the stairwell. I want to have a conventional sloping roof. If we build the roof using normal 45-degree roof bricks on a building that's 16 studs deep, you need 8 rows of roof bricks. This is similar to the Honeyduke Sweet Shop MOC, which has a roof made out of those kind of bricks. That needs a lot of bricks to go the whole length of a 64 stud wide building. We could try having a flat part at the top of the roof. That means the roof isn't as high and doesn't use as many sloping elements. I tried that out and it seems to work okay. I'll build the roof structure on a plate which will form the ceiling of the upper floor of the building, rather than leaving it open as a vaulted ceiling. I'll also need a support structure internally in the roof to support it, as I've found that without it a roof can be quite fragile. The roof will be built in sections. There'll be the roof for the central part of the building and 2 sections of roof for the wings. On top of the roof there'll be a clock and possibly a carillon. That will also need some kind of support structure inside the roof. That all sort of brings me to the subject of strength and support. As I said, I've built modular buildings before that are 48 studs wide, such as this extended modular brick bank and this 48 stud wide research building, and they were surprisingly strong once everything was all fitted together. But obviously I do need a firm foundation to support the walls and floors, and the walls need to support the floors above. I found that really for the larger buildings I need some sort of structure internally to support the floors. You can get large plates and just bridge across the full depth of a building up to about 16 studs, but I don't want any sagging over time. So really we need to add some supports for the floor plates for each level of the building. When we add internal walls to the building, they will not only serve to divide the internal space, they also provide strength and bracing to the external walls and provide support for the floor above, and so add a lot of structural integrity to the build. I'll do my floor plates using the established method, using 2 layers of plates, and then when the walls are built onto those floor plates they really get to be really quite strong. Nevertheless, I think one whole building that's 64 studs wide gets to be quite large, so as I said, adding the wings will allow me to break up the structure into separate sections. To meet the standards and conventions for modular buildings, this MOC will have to incorporate the connection points for modular buildings at the sides, as shown here. By convention there's a pavement or sidewalk at the front, and I'll try and keep that in the same style as the other modular buildings, with grey 2x2 tiles and a lighter coloured curb along the front. In this case I want to keep the building in line with the normal convention, but I also want to have steps and a portico at the front entrance, So I'm going to cheat a bit by having the portico extend over the area that would normally be the pavement. And optionally I can have a deeper portico that cheats even more by extending the portico forwards onto the adjacent base plate. You can find out more about the standards and conventions for modular buildings in my videos on the topic, so I'm not going to explain it further here. So now I think I'm in a position to define the sections that I'm going to have for this MOC. Sections can be quite rigid and strong if they're designed properly, and also if they're designed well they will all fit together while enabling the building to be taken apart if required, for example if moving the building or to gain access to the features of the interior. I'll have the lower ground floor or semi-basement as one section providing the foundations for the building. Then there'll be the main building as a ground floor section and two wing sections for each side. There'll be the first floor for the main section of the building and a first floor for the wings on each side. Then now there's going to be a second floor for the main section of the building. Then there'll probably be one main roof for the top of the main part of the building, and then the wings will have a roof section each. So that will end up with a total of 11 sections or modules to make up the whole of the building. So that was a quick look at developing the structural design for this MOC. This is where the design has got to so far. I've developed the structure of the design in the Studio computer-aided design software. I circled back and adjusted the outline design slightly because, as I said earlier, the design process doesn't always go in a straight line. I wanted to concentrate on the structural design aspects of the design in this video, but as you can see I've already actually been working on some of the details at the same time. So in the next video I can look at the details of the design so far and develop them further. You can see that we're now pretty firm on the size and shape of the building. We've designed the building with the main section in the middle and the wings at each side. We've had a good start at developing the facade with the large windows in the main part of the building and the smaller ones for the wings. And indeed I've been developing the back windows along the same lines. I spent a lot of time developing the design for the main entrance and the portico, which isn't really structural, but it is a major feature of the building that interested me, and it's central to the layout of the rest of the building. After quite a lot of trial and error, we worked out how to add the stairs into the building using a stairwell at the back. We had a look at the structure of the roof, although I think there's more work to do in this area. And we've worked out how the model can be divided into sections, which will be built as separable modules when I get round to building this MOC for real. There's still a lot of work to do on this design, and there'll be no doubt many more iterations to get the details right. We still need to work out the details of all the doors and windows, the floor sections, how to make the roof or roof sections, details of the staircase and stairwell, and start to think about the interior. We haven't really thought much yet about the internal structure. We'll want to divide the space up internally into some separate rooms, and we need to work out where to put the internal walls, which will need to fit in with where we put the windows, and vice versa. We will also start thinking about colours and whether the bricks we need to realise this design are actually available in the colours and sizes that we need to make the model. This video is one of a series, and I need to break here. So look out for the next episode, in which we'll look at the detailed design for this MOC, covering the things we just talked about, such as colour scheme, what to put inside, and the bricks I need to complete the build. Thanks for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos about my LEGO modular buildings and my LEGO city.